What's up, nerds? Welcome to another super special edition of Them Nerds, where we are going to talk about WandaVision. Before we get into that, don't forget we are going to be giving away this Wanda Funko Pop at the conclusion of this season of WandaVision. So make sure you comment, like, subscribe, interact with us on social media. Basically, if you're interacting with any of our content, you're entered to win. Okay, so do that. Jerry, WandaVision series, or this WandaVision episode 5 thing, you know, it was okay.
Yeah. No.
Holy crap!
Yeah, it was.
Oh. Spoilers, by the way, if you're watching this, it's a review / recap. So if you don't
spoilers,
understand,
it's spoilers
here.
Spoilers. Watching to be disappointed.
If you see these two handsome punums on screen and the title says WandaVision, chances are spoilers will be here. Okay.
We're spilling the tea.
Yeah, we're spilling. Mm-hmm. Ooh, Wanda. Wanda done lost it. All right.
No,
So, just like last episode was like a huge, like, oh my God, they're really like ramping this thing up. This one, what was the biggest moment? We'll recap the show here first, I guess, and then we'll talk about it. So the show begins with sword director Tyler Howard, which he seems odd to me.
I've said from the very beginning, I think he's the real big bad.
Something seems off. He's just in there trying to nuke Wanda from day one.
Yeah.
So he shows up.
Well, I was going to say a part, but we haven't got to that part yet, so I won't say it.
Okay. He shows up and immediately starts kind of contradicting the intuition that Monica Rambeau and Darcy and Agent Wu have about Wanda. They all are kind of in agreement that something's not right with Wanda. And she's not a terrorist, because that's what the guy keeps calling her. Yeah. Director Howard keeps saying, oh, she's a terrorist. And they're like, there's something not right with her. She doesn't seem like she's fully in control of her faculties right now. Right.
Well, even going as far to say, Wu was like, yes, she was against them before she became part of them. And then he's like, well, what's her code name then? She doesn't have a code name, like as if because she never received a code name from them, she's less of a member than Iron Man or Captain America or, all these people who have these, nicknames. That's the only way that you become a real member of the team is when they actually give you a code name.
Right.
And also, well, implying that we all know she really does have a code name.
Yes. Right. By the way, speaking of, and this is, I'm going a little bit off of the review of the episode, but I am so desperate for a spinoff with Darcy, Wu, and Monica.
I don't even care if Monica's in it. I want Darcy and Wu in a series. It's X-Files, it's Mulder, it's Scully. They're just going out and they're investigating stuff. And the whole time is like, they're almost on the cusp of figuring it out. But then there's a whole lot that they just they never put their finger. Like one person comes in that actually solves the case for them. Like they never get all the way there.
Right. And we're not the only ones that want this. On Twitter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started trending again because people are like, these should be the anchors for a new Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Series wanted to have a spinoff called Agents of S.W.O.R.D. And Marvel Studios said no. Maybe they were saving it for this. Maybe we're going to get Agents of S.W.O.R.D.
I want Luis in it also.
Yes.
We have had this conversation. I said I think that he needs to be in it. Yes. I think that Luis has been underserved this whole time, that I think that he should be the Micro Machine Man of Marvel, where he does the recaps of everything. And it's just that one long run-on sentence that's just where he just blurts out everything that happens. And it's always almost there, but it's a little bit wrong every time he's saying it.
Right. Well, we've talked about how there are characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we wish could kind of rejoin the MCU. And this would be a great way if you had, say, Monica was kind of like an out in the field sort of spy sort of agent. And you could bring in Daisy Johnson, perhaps, to kind of be her partner or to be one of those same sort of agents. And then you could have these sort of office-based people like Wu and Darcy. I just think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, you can have a complete series that's almost like X-Files and Fringe pushed together, where it's a show about extraterrestrials and also the idea of parallel universes.
Right.
Already built.
There are so many little pockets of the Marvel comics continuity that they could draw from and never step on the MCU's toes.
Yeah, because you would bring them in to investigate not big, storylines, but like the smaller ones that we're never going to get to in the movies, but yet you build them up where you're still building up your universe.
Right.
Completely off topic from the show, but
no, that's okay. Okay, so now we actually begin the sitcom part. We're back to the sitcom stuff that had kind of gone away in the fourth episode, so that we could build up what was going on with the folks that were outside. And here we got kind of the 80s Family Ties sort of look, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm in the Full House here today.
Actually, if you watch the intro, it was very Family Ties the whole time, except for the very last scene of the intro is almost a direct scene from Full House where they're in the park in front of the home that they supposedly live in.
Right. Yeah. Those.
But like they went so far on the set for this episode to like pull signs from Family Ties and put them in there. The kiss the cook and all this other stuff that was in there. But
yeah, the next episode I know for sure they still are doing some, because that's when she talks about having a case of the Mondays.
Yeah. Well, and what I kind of liked about this episode is that you had the episodes, obviously as a sitcom, but then you're also seeing the stuff that's happening in the real world. But then there's also parts of the show that seem like it's not completely in the show also. You know what I mean? But they're still obviously the actors, but it doesn't seem like it's really falling within the realm of the sitcom itself.
Yeah. It's starting to appropriately kind of mix realities, right?
Yeah, where this is just becoming the way you live rather than it's a different show every week.
Right. So they're in the house, they've got their babies, they're crying. It's a very like sitcom-y kind of beginning, like, golly gosh, I wish these kiddos would stop crying. And she tries to use her abilities and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Right. And then who should show up?
Agatha.
Agnes, aka probably Agatha Harkness.
Unlikely. So
she shows up, and then there's the most surreal moment of the entire show, in my opinion, where she kind of like stops and looks at Wanda for stage direction.
Yeah, like this is almost like she was. The whole purpose of her coming was she was supposed to pick up the kids, and when that didn't happen, she's like, okay, we're just gonna start that over again.
Right.
Start
like
from the
Vision
beginning.
Went off script.
Yeah,
and she's like, should we take that from the top? She used vernacular like they were actors on a stage, and Wanda was like confused by it, and Vision was like, what?
Yeah,
like he's starting to see like this is not normal what's going on here. But so Agnes does some weird things, sprays lavender on the babies, right?
Yeah, she's spraying these, lavender on them. And I also thought there was a moment there where she said she sprays that on Ralph and he's a real tiger in the bedroom, Yeah. And then she obviously like Vision pulls Wanda to the side and is like, there's something not right about that whole thing. Why does she always show up? Why was she saying this? He's more aware of what's happening now. It seems like whatever happened the last episode where he kind of had that moment where he's like, we can just leave. And she's like, no, we can't. And, realizing, what Agatha said and what Herb had said outside are still sticking in his head.
Right.
And so he notices that things aren't quite right. Well, then all of a sudden you see the kids aren't crying and they go over to the cribs and the cribs are empty. But it's almost like Agatha, whatever she may have sprayed on them is what's going on. Are the kids doing it to themselves, or is she the ones that's directing them to do it? And she also has this whole conversation about how she's looking for the brown liquor. And then she's like, not for me, sillies, it's for the kids. Which, I mean, I took as maybe like the old wise tale where you would rub it on their gums or whatever, like they were teething. That's why they were crying.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's what's going on. It could also be like a sleight of hand kind of thing where they're trying to take your eyes off the kids for long enough to switch them out with new characters.
Right. We had the age jump where they went from being newborns to being 5.
Yeah.
And even in the opening credits, the cake had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 candles on it, which I thought was kind of clever. There's a couple points where Vision kind of looks at Agnes and thinks like, what? Because in the one part she says, "Oh, I heard you needed some help with the babies."
Yeah.
And he's like, where did you hear that? And she's like, "Through the door, silly."
Yeah.
And then when they had the puppy, she's like, "Oh, I heard you might need this." And Vision's like, "Oh, look, it's Agnes with exactly what we need for this situation." He's starting to see like, this is not.
And then I noticed that when she says that, or when she comes into the room, there, you kind of see the idea of the whole kitchen. If you look on the table, there's a plate on the center of the table with a toy tiger in the middle of it, which goes along with just a few minutes ago where she has said that he's a real tiger in the bedroom.
I noticed that tiger too, and I was like, "The hell is that?"
Yeah,
but maybe you're right.
Like maybe Ralph is the one that we don't ever see. Ralph's been talked about every episode. Maybe Ralph is the real person that these shows are going on for.
How much of a slap in the face would it be if the person behind all this was Khazar with his pet tiger? Anyway, so jumping back out to what's going on with
jungle, watching it.
Yeah, just in a tree. Going back out to the folks outside who are living in the real world. Monica is being tested. And there's some weird discoveries that they find. Her imaging comes back just a bright white spot, right?
Yep.
Which we were talking about last night. Kind of ties to what?
With her background. Now, if you checked out our breakdown of what Monica's abilities are and her backstory is, she is actually hit with a large amount of energy, which causes her molecules to change. And she becomes pure energy that she can control. Now, I was thinking that not that long within that same time period, they start talking about that CB, whatever it was, which equals out to be basically the Big Bang theory of how worlds are created. So she gets pulled into that world, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's when it happens. I think it's when that initially where Wanda is forcing her back through as such force that it would actually change her atoms and make her into what we see as the Photon or Captain Marvel or Spectrum that she has been known by in the comics. What I also thought was really important about that conversation where they start talking about that Big Bang theory idea of and they actually, I do not remember the numbers. I'm not that kind of person. It's like CB something or other they call it. That's almost CMBR. Yeah. It's almost a direct take from Fantastic Four, the original movie, where Reed Richards is trying to sell the idea to Victor Van Doom to get the space program going, where he's talking about the creation of the Big Bang theory that caused all the universe to happen, that this rare anomaly is about to happen again. That's why we need to get up into space. Well, that also goes up with what we were talking about. I don't know if we even got to it last week, but last week's episode, there's a conversation where they're talking about Monica asks how the space program's going, and they basically say whatever astronauts we didn't lose to the blip that we're now getting back, the ones that we didn't lose are too scared to go back up there. So there's people that were up in space when the blip happened and that were pulled back through this energy that possibly could be how we're going to get Fantastic Four.
Absolutely. That's an ideal origin story given what we already have. So that's a great catch. So we learn about how objects that are taken through change, right? And we also learn that Wanda, after the events of Endgame, stole Vision's corpse.
Yeah.
Right? Is it a corpse when he's not really alive? I don't know. But which was supposed to be an end credits scene in Endgame, and they pulled it back at the last minute.
Yeah. And it's actually a real that's almost taken directly from the comic books. When Vision is destroyed, they go and find him, and he's been dismantled, and they go and they put him back together, and that's how we get that white version of Vision. So right. I don't know if that's where we're going with it, but I still thought that the little nod, almost down to like the way that if you see the art from that comic book, and then you see the way that the body was laid out in that scene. It was almost directly taken from the comic book shot for shot.
And it's interesting. You mentioned this last night. I didn't really even think of it. Someone refers to Vision as a popsicle.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in a minute. So anyhow, we learn all about her taking Vision's body. We go back in, and we have the twins have now become 10 years old. They're 10, and I noticed this.
Do we say anything about her clothes yet? About Monica's clothes? Because I think that happened around the same time, right?
That's right. Yeah, it changed when she went through. She was wearing her Kevlar when she went through, and then she came back out in those like 70s, bell bottoms and whatever. And they were still made of Kevlar. They had just been completely refashioned by Wanda's abilities.
Yeah, and what basically Monica takes from that is that what if we were to put something that was from that time in, she wouldn't need to change it. We can actually get something in there,
right?
And then that's when we go back and you kind of have you see the dog being washed. I think that's around the same time, right?
Yeah, more or less. So yeah, then we get the whole drone thing. But I forgot. I wanted to mention this. Is just one of these things that stands out to me. When the boys got older, when they became 10, Billy was dressed in red, and Tommy was dressed in kind of like a bluish green.
Yeah, like an aqua color.
Right. And if you have watched or if you've seen any of our content where we talk about Young Avengers, actually I have a Young Avengers video that's going to be up soon. I haven't put it up yet, but we've referenced in the past that Billy becomes Wiccan, and Tommy becomes Speed. Speed is modeled after Quicksilver. His abilities are modeled after Quicksilver, and Billy is modeled after Scarlet Witch. The idea that they're wearing colors that are kind of similar to the family that they get their specific power from, I think is almost like it's either a nice little nod to those of us that know that, or it's foreshadowing, and we are definitely getting Young Avengers.
Yeah. I also think it's the first time that Wanda saw it, in the very beginning, where she tries to quiet the babies and she realizes that her powers won't work on her, and Agnes actually says that to her, children, basically you have no control over kids. Right. And then on that same scene, Vision says you can't have the dog till you're 10. You actually see the boys force themselves to grow up to be 10 years old so that they can go ahead and get their dog.
Right. And between Agnes doing weird things that Vision seemed to notice, but nobody else did, and the whole like age change thing, and he's noticing like things are weird. He ends up being at work, and he sees a communique from Sword in the form of an email, right?
Yeah.
And then we get this like totally off the wall scene where he touches his coworker's temple, and then he's back in reality. He knows what's going on, and he's like, "Oh my God, my family! Where am I? What's going on?" And then like that's when he knows like something's messed up here.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering too, because when they originally talked about sending something through that was of the time, I assumed that they were talking about the drone. But then I thought to myself, like, I don't know if they had those kind of drones back in the 80s. And then, but what I did think was that email would have been something that would have been able to be sent through, especially the way that they sent it through, with the format that they use. Yes. So I think that their idea was contact Vision and let him know what's going on, give him the heads up.
Yeah, I think the drone was supposed to be from that time period, because they mentioned, this 80s. The 80s video technology is so bad. So, but yeah, I
kind of took it that maybe they were using that to preoccupy her with that, so that they can get this other thing in here, so she wouldn't know that's going through also.
Could be. Which of course, the director Howard says, "All right, open fire," right?
Yeah.
And how does Wanda take that, Jerry?
Not well, bitch.
She went absolutely nuts, right?
Yeah.
Comes out of the bubble.
She's like, I'm using my old voice, my old accent.
Yeah. She went full Sokovian.
Yeah. You know, she said, you like this outfit? I bought it.
Yeah.
And she tosses a drone at him. But I think the most pivotal moment of that whole, you know, obviously Monica speaks to her. And I think you kind of can see this idea that Wanda realizes that Monica's not the enemy.
Right.
But she does think that Howard is.
Yes.
And so she ends up there's a scene in it, or there's a second of a scene where you actually see her as she's walking away, she turns all the guns towards him, which is very reminiscent of the first time you see Magneto. And I don't know if it's the first time, but it's definitely, I want to say maybe it was in Last Stand, where all the guns, the cops pull guns on Magneto, and he pulls out. No, it wasn't the first movie. He takes all the guns out of their hands, and then he turns them back towards them. I think he says something like, "You humans and your guns."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's very reminiscent. Like, this is like, you know, like it's like a family trait. And then she just like, as she's walking through the force field, she kind of puts her hands on it, and the force field starts like beating red, like almost like she's putting another hex on it. Like, even something, this won't happen again. And she gets
right. Yeah. Because as she was walking back through, she gave him a pretty dire warning.
Yeah.
And then she seemed to do something that changed it. And, you know, it could be that it's tied to her mental state and she's feeling more volatile than normal. You know, the idea that she's kind of going back to using that Sokovian accent is interesting.
Yeah.
But the most interesting thing about the episode was the ending.
Well, see, I think that there's other parts too that because you have the whole scene where Sparky dies.
Right.
And then you see, you know, the boys have this whole tender moment with her about how, oh, you can do anything. You could bring the dead back to life. And Agnes is like, you can do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and then she explains to them how, you know, and they almost try to age themselves out of this pain of losing the dog. And she's like, no, we work through our pain, which obviously is completely opposite of what she's doing. She's like, no, you trap a town. That's what we do.
Yeah. Make a bubble.
So then, you know, she explains to them, you know, that you have to work through your pain and yada, yada, yada. It's just, and then she go back into the house and the boys are asleep and she's talking to Vision, and Vision basically tells her, listen, I had a conversation with Norm, and she was like, okay, I care what Norm has to say. He's like, no, I had a conversation with Norm. And then she's like, oh. And so then, you know, he's talking to her, and he's just like, you know, these people have homes, they have lives. You can't be doing this to them. And then she tries to kind of pop off kind of crazy at him. He's like, you can't control me like you do the others. And then she looks at him and says, oh, can't I? And then she rolls the credits.
Yeah. And he keeps yelling over the credits.
Yeah. And so she takes off walking, and like almost like he forces her through the credits. It's like, no, we're not done with this conversation. And you know, they're going back and forth, and there's almost a tense moment where they fly up in the air and they're about to battle. And then he explains to her, I don't remember anything before this, which is kind of a sad moment for him. He doesn't remember being an Avenger. He doesn't remember any of his other friends. He doesn't remember his years of being Jarvis with Iron Man or any of these other situations. They're all gone. His life has started 9 days ago when he came into this town. Right.
And he seems to be, at least he understands the idea that Wanda is his wife, and that's that. But beyond that, he doesn't remember anything.
And, you know, she's like, basically she's asking him, well, isn't that enough? This should be enough for you. And then he's like, yeah, but these people have lives too. This isn't about just us. It's about what you're doing to everybody else.
Right.
And, you know, she flat out just tells him, you think I'm doing this? You think I tell them to mow their lawn and wash their windows and go to doctor's appointments? You think I have time to do all that? And like, basically she shows her hands like, I'm not the one in control here.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people take that as her like deflecting, trying to be like that. I actually think that was probably her being very honest. I don't think she has control over what's going on in that world. I think that's the first time she's honest about it. And that's why the doorbell rings.
Remains to be seen. And the doorbell rings. And who do we see?
A Jehovah's Witness. They want to know
if she's heard the good news.
No, it's you see the back of the head, and they did a really good job to make it look like it was, you know, the original Quicksilver. But then you turn around and you see him, and it's Evan Peters' Quicksilver from Fox's X-Men.
That's right. And we get this great sort of fourth wall moment from Monica, or no, from Darcy,
Darcy, yeah.
where she says
She recast her,
recast
bro.
Pietro.
Yeah. And then,
Good.
but when you see her face, she doesn't know who he is either.
Right.
It's not until he says that thing about no, I can't. You don't want to. No big squeezes for your brother who's been gone for so long or something like that.
Right.
That she realizes it, and then she, that's when even Vision's like, "Who's this? Who's this?
Right. I don't know,
Who's
who is this person? Yeah.
And and that's when she puts it together. But then after she hugs him and he walks into the house, he looks at Vision. He says, "Who's the popsicle?"
Right.
Like he also can see that he's dead.
Right. It's just, and we know that, like, we know the connection between the characters, but we have to wonder, like, how is she going to put it together? Is she going to just accept that that's her brother, or how is she going to, like, deal with that?
If anybody who immediately started going online to find out what was going on or what they thought, what other people thought, a lot of people are dead set that this Quicksilver is Mephisto. I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so either.
I think this really is Quicksilver. I think it's Quicksilver from Fox. I think that there's going to be a whole long explanation. That's how we're probably going to end up getting a lot more mutants back into the MCU.
Yeah.
I think that Mephisto is there probably. And I 100% believe that I think he's Ralph personally. And I think that's why you never see him.
Could be.
But I do not believe that. I think that if you think about this in one way, WandaVision happens technically before Spider-Man Far From Home, right? In the continuity of timeline. When Mysterio comes into Spider-Man, they all automatically believe the idea that he is from the multiverse. Like, it's not even a question. Oh yeah, there's multiverses out there. People come from all these different places. Well, wouldn't that make sense if 9 days beforehand or a month beforehand, before you went on your European trip, you have a whole new Quicksilver that showed up that's from a whole different dimension?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time that they've seen somebody else that is the same exact person from your world, but from a different world coming into play.
Right. I don't know where they're going to go with it. I don't know what this means for, bringing other people in. I don't know if he is who he is and he's going to stick around or what. All I know is every episode that we watch of this show makes me more and more anxious for the next episode of this show. And I can't wait to see what they do with episode 6.
Yeah, they make 30 minutes feel like 20
right.
seconds. If only I could figure out how to make my work day go this fast.
Right? No kidding. Well, guys, I hope that you are keeping up on WandaVision, and I hope you're keeping up with Them Nerds' coverage of WandaVision, because we're excited about this show and we love talking about it, and we hope you guys are enjoying us talking about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on social media at We Them Nerds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And that will do it for us today on Them Nerds WandaVision episode 5 recap and review. Be good. Be good to each other. Later.
Stay nerd.